HIV stigma, AIDS stigma. What's the difference? Next.
When you love who you are and stay true to yourself, you inspire others to do the same. Ask your healthcare provider if Biktarvy is right for you, or visit Biktarvy.com to view the important facts, including important warnings.
Hello there. Welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we are about turning positive into a plus. You know, when I created this platform with my colleagues, we really wanted to tackle stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS around the world. Nobody should ever be made to feel less than because of these three letters and a symbol, or, as I've more recently discovered, the word AIDS. Last Sunday, I received a tweet from someone in Hawaii. The tweet read, "Karl talks only about people who are HIV positive, but not a single word about those of us living with AIDS. Long-term AIDS survivors are marginalized and ignored by the HIV plus community. It's no wonder we get so much more stigma and discrimination from society than the POS community." Now that tweet caught me off guard because I am not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I don't play one on television. And I like to think that I have made myself pretty educated over the years of living with HIV. But I didn't put these two together. So I reached out to Dr. Anu, who is on the line with us, to help me understand this and learn more. I'm also very happy to have my friend David Polly-Polson, a longtime HIV survivor, joining us via Skype from Sydney, Australia, and Michael, the man who sent me that tweet last weekend, for jumping on the line and joining us, because we are about educating not just me, about all of us. So I thought we'd have a very frank conversation. What is the difference between someone living with HIV and what's the difference with someone living with AIDS? Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being included.
Absolutely. And as I said, we've got Polly and we've got Dr. Anu. So, Michael, I want to start with you. I appreciate that you follow us and that you're aware of what we're doing at Plus Life. Help me understand where I am going wrong in my activism.
Well, it's more particular to the United States. The CDC considers a person who a long-term survivor with HIV who has advanced HIV to where they have developed the disease called AIDS. Once they get that disease, that diagnosis sticks with them for life or until there's a cure, because all you can do is control it and try to suppress it with antiretroviral medications, but you're never able to cure the disease. So that diagnosis has stuck with me for the last 35 years.
Right. So you consider yourself a person living with AIDS. I brought my friend David Polly-Polson on. As I mentioned, he's joining us from Australia. David, Polly, you were diagnosed in 1984. And granted, you're in Australia, we're here in the United States, we're talking about the CDC versus things in Australia. But you too were diagnosed at some point with an AIDS-defining illness, weren't you?
Correct. Yes. My CD4 count went down to 32, which at that time, anything under 200 was diagnosed as full-blown AIDS. I had MAC and I had PNP. So yes, for a time I had AIDS.
And now, do you consider yourself a person living with AIDS, or do you consider yourself someone who is HIV positive? Hell, I'm trying to understand the difference between the two.
Well, Karl, I consider myself someone living with HIV. I now have an undetectable viral load, and I have had an undetectable viral load for well over 20 years, thanks to Professor David Cooper, the drug trials, and the latest ARV. So I can just consider myself a person living with HIV. I don't have AIDS anymore. I have a very strong immune system. My CD4 count is over 400. So no, I don't consider myself a person living with AIDS.
Okay, Dr. Anu, I want to bring you in on this since you are the doctor here. Help me understand. I get it. If you're HIV positive and you don't take meds, you don't take your ARVs, it can progress to AIDS, and nobody wants that. can you have AIDS and become HIV positive, like reverse it? Does that make sense?
Well, reversing it meaning going from HIV positive to having acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which is AIDS, and then treating it, right? And then coming back into just being HIV positive and not having AIDS, right? Not having the syndrome. Yes, you can, which is what David or Polly did and went through, taking all the medications and going through all those trials. David, I have to give it to you. But to answer Michael, and I think that's part of the medical system, and it's unfortunate, and this is part of education, not only to the general public, but I would have to say medical practices in the medical system. It's unfortunate that when you have a diagnosis, it sticks with you, right, Michael? Just like you're experiencing it in your medical records.
Yes, it's
for life to a certain degree.
Yes, it's at the top of the list of the printout I get from the doctor after each visit. It's at the top of the list of my diagnoses.
So I'm just curious, and again, I'm jumping in here, and these are very genuine questions because I don't know enough. You were HIV positive, stage 3. You got the sort of AIDS defining illness. That was treated, but you've never recovered from that? Is that what you're saying, that AIDS defining illness is still within you?
Well, actually, I started at stage 3. When I was first diagnosed, I already had AIDS. That was back in 1983. And that was before I even knew anything about the disease. I think I had heard it mentioned before, because it was going on in New York and San Francisco. But I really was unfamiliar with what AIDS was, but I was told I had it and that I should prepare to get my life in order because I probably only had a year or maybe 2 at most to live. So I've always considered that since they've never found a cure, that I must still have, and my doctor, like I say, puts in my chart that I still have AIDS. I have the disease, but it's under control.
Right. So you were given an AIDS diagnosis. I mean, Michael's been diagnosed since 1983. How is your health these days, Michael?
My health is fine. I mean, for the most part, it's all the other medical problems associated with growing older and all of the complications caused by not only long-term living with the virus, but also side effects of all the medications I take.
I'd like to get Polly's reaction to this and your thoughts, Polly.
Well, I agree with Michael. I did those 28 drug trials, and all of them were hideous. And I not only have I survived AIDS, but I'm now living with the side effects of those dreadful drugs. And they actually, well, one of these side effects is actually worse than HIV AIDS itself, which is hard to believe, but it is. It's a dreadful brain disease called superficial siderosis. It's very rare. It's bleeding on the brain, on the cerebellum, and it affects your movement in your whole body. It affects everything. And you eventually lose the use of your limbs, your hearing, your sight, you become bedridden, you get dementia, and you die. And that's the worst side effect I have to live with. But I have other things like lipodystrophy, atrial fibrillation, peripheral neuropathy. The list goes on. So, yes, I live with it, but I'm still alive. I'm still grateful to be here. And I'm still enjoying life. And I don't consider myself a person living with AIDS, but I consider myself a person living with HIV.
Which brings us around full circle to the tweet, Michael, in that you mentioned that we don't talk about those living with AIDS. So what can we at Plus Life, what can everyone do to help fight that stigma so that we are all encompassing?
Well, first let me start by saying that for the record that CDC defines a normal CD4 count as being between 500 and 1,500 copies. My CD4 count has always been in the low 300. So since I don't have a normal CD4 count by CDC definitions, then I'm really I wouldn't say that I'm really out of that I'm free from the disease.
But if I may interject, this is where I'm getting confused by things, because I thought if you were undetectable, your CD4 count has to be at a certain level, and thus you're undetectable, right, Doc?
Usually that is the case. So that's where it's very interesting that if you're undetectable, that your CD4 counts are still low.
Michael, I'm in the same situation as you. My CD4 count, as I said, went down to 32, and it took years and years and years and years to get it up to 400. And it does actually go between 320 to 400. Now, my last CD4 count was 354, but the percentage was 18%, which was a good sign because that meant, as I'm sure you understand, the CD4s are strong and healthy, the ones I've got. So my CD4 count has never really recovered above 400 ever since I went down to 32. But I'm still healthy. I'm still well. I don't even look at the CD4 count now, as long as I'm undetectable. And that's what David Cooper said to me. As long as you're undetectable, Polly, that's all I'm interested in. I do not worry about your CD4 count because your body is undetectable. So that's all he counted. So, but I understand what you're saying. I've never had a CD4 count higher than 400 since, oh gosh, probably 1992.
You know, I think it's interesting. I think this just comes to come full circle to where we started this conversation, which I found utterly fascinating and wish we had more time to keep discussing. The bottom line is this: stigma still exists. It's still very real. Now, whether you attach it to HIV, whether you attach it to AIDS, regardless, it is, in this day and age, totally and utterly unnecessary. If you're like Michael, if you're like Polly, if you're like me, and you're undetectable, nobody should be treating anybody, whether you're undetectable or not for that matter, as a second-class citizen. Gentlemen and Dr. Anu, I'd like to thank you all for joining. Polly for joining from Australia. Michael for stepping up and joining the conversation. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I can only say that I will certainly try harder to be more inclusive moving forward, but it's a team effort. And I personally, I don't feel it's one side versus the other. I feel we're all in this together. We all have a responsibility, whether you consider yourself a person living with AIDS or HIV positive, a doctor, or someone out there who doesn't have any of these conditions. It's a team effort. It's something that we talk about, we educate ourselves, and I feel like we've had a great conversation here. So, Dr. Anu, thank you for your time. Michael in Hawaii, aloha and thank you. David Polly Paulson, I'll see you later, mate. And thank you. For more information on anything we've talked about today, be sure to follow Plus Life Media across social media platforms. We are at Plus Life Media, or the website, pluslifemedia.com. I am going to continue this conversation at another time with Anu, and maybe we'll have Michael and Polly back to talk about it more. But send us some comments. Let us know what you think. I'd be curious. Until next time. Bye-bye.